As the Trump administration continues to roll back safeguards for the LGBTQ+ community, transgender Americans are fearing for their civil liberties. The National Center for Trans Equality Action Fund considers the 2020 election the most important election in history for the LGBTQ community. Through a new Transform the White House Forum, the NCTE spoke with 2020 Democratic candidates to address the transgender community's growing concerns. So to discuss Transform the White House, I'm joined by Keisling in Washington. She's the executive director of the National Center for Transgender Equality Action Fund. Thank you so much for joining us, Mara. So let me ask you, if you were to grade this administration in regards to how trans people have been treated so far, what grade would you give the administration?
Oh, they would have been expelled from school about 2 years ago.
All right, so break it down. Tell me why. What are the issues that concern you about the Trump administration?
Well, the Trump administration, vis-a-vis trans people and lots of other kinds of people, has been scaring children, has been refusing to enforce federal law, has been ideologically going after us with total disregard for what's good for America. You know, the trans military ban is a prime example, trying to rip 15,000 or so troops from 15,000 or so teams across the military for totally ideological reasons, saying they won't enforce education discrimination protections for transgender children. It's an absolute disgrace.
You know, I think when people consider the administration's policies and its impact on trans people, the two things that you identified are probably the first things that come to mind. We're talking about, you know, the military and also, you know, use of bathrooms and so on and so forth in schools. But there are other changes that affect everyone, but specifically affect the trans community more because the trans community is particularly vulnerable. I'm thinking now of healthcare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Trump administration is trying to put in a rule for which we had almost 200,000, 175, I forget the exact number, people commented and said, please don't do this. And basically what it says is healthcare workers, any kind, doctors, whatever, can refuse to treat somebody because they claim they have a religious problem with unwed mothers or transgender people or who knows who else. It's just outrageous. Yeah,
it's called the conscience rule, and we're sort of putting it up there on the screen so people can see, you know, what it means. So your organization was able to sit down with a lot of the 2020 candidates. Is the community liking what they hear from the candidates? Are the candidates going far enough?
Well, we're actually just launching it today.
Okay.
So the community is really just getting to see it now. But I know that they will be really thankful to know that the candidates who we're showing the videos of so far, and all of I'm hopeful all of the candidates are showing real interest in protecting people, including transgender people, but are really aware of the murders that are happening to transgender people, are really aware of the healthcare crisis we're having, and are really aware of all of the ways that the Trump administration is attacking trans adults and trans kids.
Yeah, and you know, when you talk about violence, being the victims of crime, healthcare, this is the sort of stuff that actually affects everyone. So if you think trans issues, you know, don't affect you because you're not part of the community, think again. Your organization actually found that 57% of transgender people have a fear of approaching law enforcement for help. What are they most afraid of?
Well, they're afraid of being mistreated. Transgender people are disproportionately victims of crime, disproportionately accused of crimes, disproportionately incarcerated, and disproportionately mistreated by law enforcement. And we know that experience personally, a lot of folks, but also we know people who have experienced things like that. So it's hard in any community that is unfairly targeted. It's hard to expect that they would feel comfortable reporting crimes or being a witness or helping out. And that's a real crime and to everybody's detriment.
12 transgender women have died of violence this year. so far. All of them are women of color. Let's play a clip from an interview that you did with Cory Booker where he sort of speaks to this issue. Then we'll talk afterwards.
I'm going to be someone that speaks to this crisis and begins to take specific measures to do something about that. And this is why this administration's awful acts by removing trans protections from the Department of Education and the work they were doing in schools to make them safe environments, by removing the DOJ's sense of urgency on dealing with protections for trans Americans. This is even around issues, as we said already, in immigration. It's around issues in police accountability. There are so many areas where just your physical safety, if you're a trans American, is under threat in this country right now, and I won't tolerate it.
So that was Cory Booker. You also spoke to Bernie Sanders and Kirsten Gillibrand. Did you hear anything specific from any of these candidates? You know, in general saying, I'm not going to take it anymore and something needs to change, that's fine. But what about specific policies or plans?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have more than just those 3 interviews completed so far, and we're completing them all the time. But we're just starting with 3 today. There'll be another one next week, and we're rolling them out as we go. And yeah, there are specific things. I mean, Senator Booker, if you watch the whole interview, and there's a short interview and a much longer interview from which we cut the shorter one, but you'll see that he really understands this particular thing that's happening to mostly younger, low-income Black trans women. He understands the problem, and he has some ideas to really get at it. It's a really hard, intractable problem that involves racism and economics and anti-Blackness and so many other things. And to answer your question, the candidates, yeah, they do express general support, and they have specific ideas of what to do.
Once again, you bring up something that I've sort of brought up a couple times. The phrase is intersectionality, that you know, things are quite often not just an issue for one group, that often there's overlapping. These are issues that pertain to poverty, pertain to being a visible minority, pertain to being, you know, a part of various marginalized communities. Just out of curiosity, you know, when it comes to politics, often money makes a huge difference. How organized is the trans community? Are you guys raising money? Is there fundraising involved here?
So NCTE is not yet raising money for political candidates. NCTE Action Fund is not raising money yet for candidates. We may do that at some point in the future. I should be careful because I'm not a legal compliance expert, so I don't want to get out in front of myself there and my lawyers. But trans people vote, trans people work on campaigns, trans people talk, trans people write, trans people protest, and trans people are ordinary folks like everybody else. Extraordinary folks, like everybody would like to be.
I like that. Mara Keisling, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Anne-Marie.